Alright everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for another Strange and Dark Cases compilation video. This is where I take a lot of cases that are really too short to be their own video, but are definitely worth talking about, and compile them all into one longer video. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Right off the bat, we've got Onlyfans girl kills man with plastic wrap. It seems like recently the stories about strange and deranged Onlyfans girls are only increasing in number. A lot of people contribute that to the fact that, given how massively oversaturated the website is at this point, people usually have to do something pretty strange to stand out and make a name for themselves. Unfortunately, that has resulted in a lot of dangerous sorts of debauchery. In her normal life, Michaela Brachet Rylersdam seemed to be an average woman. After marrying her husband Brandon, the two went on to have 3 kids. However, little did anyone know, she wasn't such a clean-cut mom behind the scenes. She both owned a stripper agency and operated an OnlyFans page along with her husband. On this page, she went by the name of Ashley Sincal. That's Ashley with 2 S's so that it looks like the word ass, by the way. While it isn't known how much money she made exactly, it seems that she and Brandon were making a pretty good chunk of change from this endeavor. Not only content to sell nudes, Michaela decided to branch out and start providing men with some good old BDSM entertainment in person as well. Signing up on a full-fledged escort website in addition to OnlyFans, she quickly got some requests. She would usually record these encounters and use them as content for her page afterwards. This only resulted in even more requests from other men and a need to keep ramping up the bizarre nature of the content to keep people interested. A 56-year-old man named Michael Dale reached out to Michaela and expressed an interest in appearing in one of her videos. He told her that he had a thing for being wrapped up in plastic wrap, telling her to, quote, wrap him up in saran wrap like a mummy. He also wanted her to glue his eyes shut and, for some reason, glue women's shoes to his feet as well. Michaela said that would all be fine, so the two met up on April 17th, 2023, with the agreement that Dale would pay her a whopping $11,000 to perform the act. Michaela started out by doing exactly what Dale wanted. She wrapped him up real good, glued some shoes to his feet, and then glued his eyes shut too. The thing is, she went overboard. She started doing things that Dale did not request without asking him first. After the man was wrapped up and couldn't move, she decided to place a plastic bag over his head and secure it with duct tape for a whole 8 minutes. Dale became unresponsive. Despite noticing this, Michaela didn't care. Instead, she hovered over him and pleasured herself on camera in order to upload to her OnlyFans page. Only then did she think that she should probably try to revive him. After failing in that regard, she finally called 911, saying that a man had passed out in her house. When the police arrived, they found Michaela trying to perform CPR on him. She told the police officers that she didn't know what had happened, specifically saying that nothing had been placed over his head. She didn't seem to consider the fact that she had just recorded herself doing the very thing she denied. The police found the footage very quickly while going over the scene. They said that Dale was very clearly struggling to breathe for the whole 8 minutes before passing out at some point along the way. Dale was rushed to the hospital, but it was already too late. He was pronounced brain dead the following day. The decision was made to take him off of life support, and he passed away very shortly after. Michaela handed her phone over to the police. Her messages did clarify that Dale had indeed requested to be saran wrapped and glued, but they couldn't find anything about placing the bag over his head in his requests. She also lied and told the police that it was her very first time engaging in BDSM-type behavior, likely hoping that she could claim that the whole thing was purely an inexperienced accident. The investigators were very disturbed with the deranged video she had taken of the ordeal, saying, "He had duct tape over his mouth, a plastic bag over his head, more saran wrap around that, and then duct tape wrapped around his face and head, securing all the layers to his head. He also appeared to have had saran wrap wrapped around his neck tightly." It took a while, but Michaela, now 31 years old, was finally arrested in February of 2024 and charged with second-degree murder. She still denies putting the bag over Dale's head or securing it with duct tape despite it being on video. She pled not guilty and continues to maintain that she didn't do anything wrong. Either way, she was thrown into jail where she was to be held without bail. The case is complicated due to the fact that Dale really did reach out to her and request that she did about half of the things that she did that night, but the prosecutors have said that there is zero evidence that he ever consented to her doing anything to obstruct his breathing, to put a bag over his head, or to put tape over his mouth. None of that was on his list. Michaela's attorney disagrees. He has said, There was no intent to kill and no attempt to cover this up. She acted appropriately when she realized this was a problem. There is definitely a consensual element. Not only something he consented to, something he was actively seeking. Shortly after the incident, OnlyFans terminated the Ashley Sincal account. She never got to upload Dale's videos before the police intervened. Michaela is still being held without bail at the Las Colinas detention facility. It seems that she will have her first hearing sometime in 2025. And now we have mass murderer kills his wife while in prison. Normally, when someone gets locked away for multiple murders, they're not really going to have the chance to kill again when they're behind bars. If they do, it's most likely going to be another inmate at the prison. Very, very rarely is it actually a member of their own family. David Brinson, a 54-year-old man, has been serving a life sentence in prison ever since 1994. That's when he was part of a robbery in which he personally gunned down 4 people. Ever since then, prison has been his only home, and that's never going to change. Still though, it appears that at some point he had gotten a wife despite that. Stephanie Dowells, a 62-year-old grandma at this point, would often go out to have conjugal visits with David. At Mule Creek State Prison near Sacramento, any prisoners who aren't on death row and aren't sex offenders are allowed to have what they call family visits. These visits only occur once in a while, but they're usually held in some private, apartment-like prison cell somewhere on the prison grounds. Sometimes they're allowed to be together for upwards of 40 hours or so. While this seems like something a murderer should never be allowed to receive, David apparently didn't treat the opportunity with much respect. Stephanie was there one night during an unsupervised overnight visit with David. It isn't known exactly what happened, but it's believed that David lost his cool and strangled her there. He told prison faculty that he found his wife like that after she must have fainted during her visit. A subsequent investigation showed clear signs of strangulation, though. Stephanie's 2 kids are bewildered. They've been left asking who in their right mind would have left a 4-time convicted murderer alone with their mom in prison. Her son has said, "How could they just let this happen? I just don't get it. Given the history that this guy has, we kind of wanted to know how is it even possible for them to be unsupervised. My mom was just left alone, and she called for help, I'm sure, and there's nothing she could do." Stephanie's daughter-in-law has said that Stephanie had been pushing David to be a better person despite his past. She said, they would read the Bible together. He was in school in there because she was pushing him to try to be this better person. A spokesperson for the prison has said, family visits are a privilege, and incarcerated persons must apply and meet strict eligibility criteria to be approved. Only those who demonstrate sustained good behavior and meet specific program requirements are considered. These visits are designed to support positive family connections and successful rehabilitation. For now, the police are hoping to continue their investigation and make for an airtight case before they officially charge David, but they don't seem to have any doubt in their minds that he killed her. After all, he was the only person with her when she was strangled. The whole thing seems pretty open and shut. Even if he is charged, though, he's already in prison for life. Given that California doesn't have the death penalty, it's very likely that his situation won't change at all. And this one is Grandma mauled by pit bulls on cocaine. 2 dogs, Echo and Apollo, were no strangers to partaking in a bit of coke from time to time. In fact, just a few weeks before today's story, they had ingested quite a bit. This led to some ruckus, which kind of goes without saying, and the condominium they lived in ordered the dog's owner, Adam Withers, to get rid of them. However, Adam didn't get rid of the dogs. He ignored the whole thing entirely. In fact, he even taunted the landlord by posting an image to Facebook of a pit bull that read, "Humans are the problem." Adam and his mother Susan that he lived with were indeed problems, and they weren't at all ashamed of it. Another woman living in the condos, 73-year-old Joanne Eckelbagger, was gardening outside one day in October when Echo and Apollo were let out of the house, allowed by Adam and Susan to roam freely around the complex whenever they pleased. That day, the 2 dogs had once again gotten into some of Adam's cocaine before being let out. The 2 dogs attacked Joanne, mauling her for several minutes as she screamed for help until she finally passed away. Her husband, Stanley, who is confined to a wheelchair and suffers from dementia, was left with no option but to look on in horror as the attack happened. The police were called, but it was already far too late to save Joanne. The cops tried to get them off of her, leading to the dogs attacking them as well. Even when the police shot the dogs, they continued their cocaine-fueled attack on the police until they finally couldn't any longer. Knowing the history of the dogs, they were taken in to be examined. It was proven that, once again, they had been high on cocaine at the time of the attack. Both of the owners, Adam and his mother Susan, were arrested on charges of involuntary manslaughter and taken in. They changed their minds very quickly about the whole humans are the problem thing and began to blame the dogs entirely, saying that this was completely out of their control. Joanne's family did not feel the same, with her son saying, "How do you not look at them as a villain responsible for killing your mom?" Her family has decided to sue both Adam and Susan, as well as the condominium association and the local dog warden, accusing them of severe negligence even after numerous complaints and red flags had been raised in the past, both about the dogs and about Adam himself. They were able to include police body cam footage both of this incident and the previous incident in which the dogs were high on coke. The police themselves were frustrated that the dog warden had refused to respond to any of this. The wrongful death suit is seeking damages of what has only been called over $25,000 along with punitive damages. The family's attorney said, "We're looking for justice. The authorities had a responsibility to take those dogs out of there." Adam was tried and convicted on charges of involuntary manslaughter. His mother, Susan, was also found guilty on the same charge. It took the jury only a couple of hours to come to that conclusion. It seems that their sentencing will take place at a later date. And, oh boy. Teacher asked students to gangbang her in scream masks. Alright, here's one that I'm honestly not even sure I can get away with talking about. Worst case scenario, I guess it becomes a membership/Patreon exclusive, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. This story all started when a teacher decided to lose a bunch of weight, and let's just say she couldn't really control her desires anymore after that. A teacher in Indiana, 31-year-old Brittany Fortenberry, has just recently been hit with numerous charges related to her misconduct, creepy behavior, and full-on assault of a number of boys at her school. Working at Eminence High School in Martinsville, she has had at least 6, but possibly more boys come out and say that she had abused them in one way or another. Not only that, but her husband, Nicholas Fortenberry, was apparently well aware of her fascination with underage boys and allowed it to happen time and time again. But it gets even worse than that. Some of Brittany's victims have come out to say that she sent them nude photos and videos of herself over social media, which they were able to prove. They also said that, in a bid to groom them, she had spent hundreds upon hundreds of dollars buying weed, vapes, clothes, and various other gifts for them as well. One of them claimed that she showed off a pole dancing pole that she had installed in her house, even sending him photos of her, well, toys that she used when she thought of him. One of the boys was the son of one of Brittany's friends. She said that her son had received a multitude of messages from Brittany on Snapchat until he blocked her. She also showered him with endless gifts related to football, some of them being fairly expensive. All of this was so odd that his mother asked her son, frankly, if Brittany had ever done anything to him. She says that her son began to cry, saying that the creepy teacher had actually bought him a lot of drugs and alcohol to try to win him over. In addition to that, she had sent him an endless stream of sexual videos of herself that he was too embarrassed to disclose to his mom earlier. Some of the other victims said that their experience with Brittany was much more direct. One night, she urged 3 boys to say that they were staying the night at a friend's house, but instead come over to her place. She picked them up and took the 3 boys over to her home, some as young as 13, and asked them to, in her words, gangbang her. She oddly forced them to wear scream masks while doing so. It seems that, in the end, they agreed and it went through. One of the boys told detectives that they felt pressured, given that Brittany would buy them anything that they wanted. It seems that they couldn't continue after one incident where Brittany forced the boys to take mushrooms. When they didn't want to take them around her, she grabbed them by the arms and told them to just let it happen. When they still wouldn't take them, she instead mixed them into some food she gave to them. She even sent one of the kids a video of herself getting off on some underwear that they had left behind. One of the victims said that Brittany's husband, Nicholas, was completely aware of what his wife was doing. When the boys seemed to be unhappy with what had happened, this husband told him, straight to his face, that he would slaughter him in front of his whole family if he ever spoke up about what his wife was doing. When this all came out, Brittany was very swiftly arrested and hit with a large number of charges. After it has come to light that she had forced herself on at least 10 different boys, she's been hit with 10 counts of child molestation, 9 counts of dissemination of matter harmful to minors, 6 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and 4 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor. Her husband, Nicholas, was charged with intimidation and failure to report a crime. It goes without saying that Brittany was immediately let go from her job as soon as all of this came out. After her arrest, Brittany broke down and told the cops that none of this would have happened if she were still fat. She said that, after losing 150 pounds, she got far too overconfident in acting on her desires. As of the making of this video, the case against Brittany is actually still developing as more and more students continue to speak out and more charges are piled on. With the sheer amount of developments happening every week, it's likely that her trial won't come around for quite some time. Whenever it does, there's an absolute mountain of evidence against her. After that, why not get into South Korean tourist poses as American high schooler to meet kids. Hey, while we're on the subject of schools, why not get in this one too? This is definitely one of the most purely weird stories on this list. In fact, one of the reasons that it's so weird is because the police and other people aren't really even sure if it's a crime or not. But then again, if it isn't a crime, then they don't really know what to label it. This story started when a South Korean man named Dong-ha Lee, who says he was 18 years old, got himself a 90-day tourist visa to the United States and set off on a journey. Almost nothing is known about who he actually is, what kind of path he took through the United States, or who he was staying with, or even if his age is accurate. What we do know are the incidents that took place after his arrival in Georgia. Dong-ha made his way out to Gwinnett County, Georgia, part of the Atlanta metropolitan area. On Friday, February 28, 2025, someone dropped him off at Seckinger High School. There, he entered into the building through one of the side doors, avoiding the main entrance. Someone, it's unclear who, led him inside. He wandered around the building pretty aimlessly, seemingly looking around for something. This was when a staff member confronted him. Having no clue who this clearly foreign man was or why he was in the building, he was taken to see the school administrator. When talking with the administrator, it was found that Dong-ha had been messaging at least one of the students there on Instagram and had been trying to get this student to leave class and come meet up with him. The school resource officers gave him a warning for criminal trespass and kicked him out. Dong-ha then left in an Uber, but it wouldn't be his last time coming out to the school. He continued to communicate with some of the students from the school. Eventually, he convinced a few of them to meet up with him at the mall. There, he bought them some expensive gifts like high-end perfumes and cologne. He even offered to straight up give them some cash if they wanted it. When school staff heard of this, they sent a warning out to parents, asking them to report if this guy had been meeting up with any other kids. Dong-ha made his way back out to the school on Monday, March 4th. He very oddly went up to school staff and tried to enroll himself in the school. They, bewildered, turned him away due to his age and not having citizenship or even temporary residency within the United States. After all of these bizarre occurrences, the local news began to report on the mysterious Korean man who was trying to make his way into the school system. Dong-ha, angry at the coverage, actually decided to call the police himself. He said that he was being threatened due to the coverage of the incidents. Rather than the cops coming out to help him, though, they instead issued him one more warning not to attend any schools in the area again. The next day, the local news actually found out how to contact Dong-ha and had a very weird phone conversation with him. He lied numerous times during the call, for example, saying that he was staying at a hotel when he was actually staying at someone's house, and saying that he had been given permission to enter the school. His biggest lie was saying that he had met the kids he talked to on a previous trip when they came out to Korea, somewhere those students had never been. Strangely, the news crew also noticed that his phone number was registered to a California area code.
Why are you meeting up with these individuals through Instagram and going and buying them things?
I wanted to make friends.
But Buford and Seckinger High School?
I met some students who are going to Seckinger High School. I met them in Korea when they visited to Seoul. Firstly, I didn't do anything illegal in here. Second, in Seckinger High School, they gave me visitor sticker, yellow one, visitor sticker with my name and entry date and purpose. They gave me visitor stickers, so I didn't do anything illegal.
Why are you doing this?
For meeting.
Why?
For meeting. For registration.
And how old are you?
18.
Because Hall County said your age did not match what you were telling them.
Oh, I was born in 2006.
Very shortly after this phone call, the police actually paid Dong-ha another visit. They came out to the home where he was staying on Laurelwood Trail and Flowery Branch. It seems that he was still messaging the students. He was booked into the Hall County Jail. He was then put on an immigration hold. Dong-ha Lee was charged with failure of unauthorized person to check in at designated location due to his entering of the school. It's unknown if he will see any time for this. He still remains in the Hall County Jail as of the making of this video. Here's a controversial one. Anti-Elon activist sets himself on fire with Molotov cocktails. There has been a whole lot of controversy going on with Elon Musk recently, and regardless of how you feel about him, you can't deny that it has resulted in some pretty chaotic antics. You've got graffiti, vandalism, and even people taking shots at each other. This case, however, is one of the weirder ones to fit into that list. A 24-year-old man named Daniel Clark Pounder was working as a mechanic in South Carolina when he developed a strong, passionate hatred for Elon Musk. He decided that he would take it upon himself to engage in a bit of Tesla violence, as many others have been doing. On March 7th, 2025, he pulled his Chrysler van into a parking lot where some electric car chargers were. He began to make some graffiti, scrawling "Fuck Trump" and "Long live the Ukraine" onto the parking lot before starting his mission. This wouldn't be his first time getting into some trouble involving cars, having previously been arrested on DUI charges, for driving with open containers of alcohol, and for driving without insurance. This, however, would be the first time that his crime would be related to damaging cars. He walked towards the car chargers in a mask, wearing some bright blue gloves and carrying a 6-pack of glass bottles. He then lit the bottles, which turned out to be Molotov cocktails, and threw them towards the Tesla brand chargers. He threw 5 of the bottles without issue. The 6th, though, wouldn't go off without a hitch. It seems that, due to the dropping of some of the flammable liquid during his backswing, he ended up catching his own back on fire and dropping the bottle. One of the only witnesses said that this is what prompted Daniel to finally flee the scene. It's unclear how extensive his injuries were, but he did manage to put the fire out. He hopped back into his van and quickly sped off. The police issued a public appeal to help find him, and it doesn't seem that it took very long. On March 13th, they found him for some reason still with the burned clothing in his van. They even found what appeared to be some sort of political manifesto that he had been writing, most of which were ramblings centered around Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. They found one more 3-page manifesto inside a notebook in his apartment. The U.S. Attorney, Brooke B. Andrews, said of the case, "While we will defend the public's right to peaceful protest, we will not hesitate to act when protest crosses the line into violence and mayhem. These kinds of attacks have no place in our community. We must remain united in our commitment to safety and respect for all, regardless of political differences." Daniel Clark Pounder was arraigned in court. It was publicized that he's facing a long 20 years in prison. It seems that he was hit with a charge of arson of property and interstate commerce. The attorneys read a letter that Daniel had written in which he claimed that Luigi Mangione, the United Healthcare CEO assassin, has a major influence. Daniel said that, although his actions were indeed those of extremism, he hoped that he, like Luigi, would inspire others to engage in non-violent protest. A magistrate granted Daniel pretrial release, saying that it was granted due to his history of mental illness and a lack of prior violent record. She pressured Daniel's family to get him some help and make sure that he actually takes his meds, implying that he was willingly neglecting to take them leading up to the incident. Right now, Daniel is under house arrest, forced to live with his mom while she makes sure he treats his bipolar disorder. And this one is, janitor spread STDs by peeing in water bottles. This isn't even the first time on this channel that we've come across someone being a little bit of a piss miscreant, a pisscreant if you will, but this might be the only time anyone's actually gotten sick from it. Lucio Catarino Diaz was a 52-year-old janitor working at a medical building in Houston in 2022. Once a woman working in the same building noticed that her water had an odd smell, a sour taste, and a yellow tint, she immediately became afraid that someone had tampered with it. She said, "I felt disgusted. I raised it to my face, smelled it, and it smelled like urine." She decided to set up a hidden camera on her desk and leave a bottle of water out to see what would happen. It didn't take too long at all. When she reviewed the video later, it showed Lucio himself removing the bottle cap, shoving his wiener halfway into the bottle, submerging it in the water, and then fiddling around with it before putting it back. The police were called, and when they confronted Lucio, he fully admitted that he had done it. At least 13 times to different people, in fact. He said that he had done it with malicious intent and that it was some sort of sickness he had. While they didn't doubt that, it didn't really make them feel any sympathy for him either. It came to be found that at least 13 people who worked at the building ended up with either herpes, hepatitis A, or both after drinking the contaminated water. Some of them hadn't even been drinking from bottled water. They had only used the water coolers within the building. That meant that Lucio had likely been cramming his porker in there as well. Some of the victims have since went on to file a lawsuit seeking over $1 million in damages against both Lucio and the custodial company that placed him at their workplace. When it came to his trial, Lucio pled guilty to aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. To everyone's shock, he was given more or less a slap on the wrist. He was only sentenced to 3 years in prison, and allowed time served for the 2 years he had been in jail up until that point. So in the end, effectively, he was given a 1-year sentence and probation for giving all of these different people lifelong illnesses with possibly life-threatening complications. The victims were outraged even further when, even after all of that, Lucio wasn't required to register as a sex offender. Now we've got what you've been waiting for. Florida man bites his friend's ear off at the beach. Here we have yet another Florida man story. I really don't even have to look for these anymore by this point. I always just coincidentally come across at least 1 or 2 of them while I'm getting ready for one of these videos. So here's one to hold you over this month. A young 18-year-old man named Jack Turner decided to go partake in some St. Patrick's Day festivities at the Fort Myers Beach in Florida. It was here that he got into a fight with a man he knew named Juwan Black. During the scuffle, he began to hurl racial insults at Juwan as they fought. A video taken by witnesses showed Jack taking Juwan down to the ground, holding his face in the sand, and slamming his fists into the back of his head. After Juwan was down, Jack pulled his head up by his hair and bit down on his ear, biting the whole thing clean off. It was described by the police as traumatic auricular amputation. After that, someone finally stepped in and broke up the fight. The police were called, and the witness who recorded the whole thing sent a copy of the video to them, leaving very little doubt as to what had happened. Juwan was taken to a local hospital to patch up his ear hole, while Jack was sent to the Lee County Jail. He's been charged with felony battery. The Lee County Sheriff said in a statement, "Sheriff Carmine Marchino has zero tolerance for violence of any kind. Fort Myers Beach will continue to remain safe for all visitors and residents of Lee County." And now, Poland arrests Ukrainian woman selling 56 human kidneys. A Ukrainian woman had been discovered to be part of an international organ harvesting criminal organization, having been collecting human organs and tissues from people against their will from 2017 to 2019. She had been found to have illegally obtained kidneys harvested from people from all over the world, like in Kazakhstan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Thailand. It seemed that she had been at it for quite a long time, making it her main and only source of income. After being caught with 56 human kidneys on her person, she was convicted for her crimes, but by unknown methods she avoided serving her 12-year prison sentence. She made a break for it, escaping from the justice system and going on the run. She had been wanted by Interpol ever since November of 2020. Interpol had issued a red notice on her, urging global law enforcement to arrest her and extradite her so that she could finally end up in prison. Well, it would be Polish border guards that would finally come across the woman in 2025. The now 35-year-old woman, only being known as Ksenia P. due to Poland's privacy laws, was detained at a railroad crossing between Poland and Ukraine. Once they looked into her, they saw the Interpol notice and found out exactly who she was. It seemed that her time on the run is now all over, and she's facing extradition to Kazakhstan to serve out her prison term and possibly end up with more years added on after her previous flight. And, police dog loses bonus over workplace misconduct. And now we have what is probably one of the strangest cases of police misconduct in history, and it involves none other than a little Corgi dog. The little dog, given the name Fuzai, meaning lucky boy, joined the police force at a small local public security bureau in China back in 2023 when he was about 4 months old. Given how small he was, he developed a talent for getting into tight spaces and sniffing out explosives. This got him a promotion to Reserve's Explosive Detection Dog in January of 2024. Now a little over a year old, he was winning a lot of favor both with the public and with his trainers. After not too long, he graduated to be a full-fledged police dog. Fuzai's story was being shared all over the Chinese side of TikTok, getting his own personal account by the Weifang Public Security Bureau. The account, called Corgi Police Dog Fuzai and His Comrades, got a pretty large fan base, sporting over 384,000 followers. In one video, Fuzai was praised for his contributions to the force throughout 2024 after completing several tasks given to him. He was awarded with a red flower, some toys, and some treats during his performance review. However, it wasn't too long after this that Fuzai's first major scandal came to light. He had been caught both sleeping on duty and peeing in his food bowl. As a result, he was charged with workplace misconduct and had his end-of-the-year bonus revoked. On camera, the treats and toys were confiscated while he was allowed to keep the red flour. In the video, an officer said, "Hope you make more persistent efforts in the future." The video quickly gained hundreds of comments. Many demanded that his bonus be returned to him and his record scrubbed clean. One commenter wrote, "He peed in his own food bowl, not in his boss's. Return his bonus immediately." Eventually another post was made, showing that Fuzai had been made whole in the end. To celebrate Chinese New Year, he was given a gift box including some Pacific herring, pumpkin soup, rabbit meatballs, dumplings, and a dish called Buddha's Temptation, a Chinese delicacy it seems. As of the making of this video, Fuzai has not peed on any of that food. It appears he has learned his lesson. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Recently, I've opened up a merch store. There you can get yourself some cool Dire Trip t-shirts and other stuff and help support the channel. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media. If you ever need to contact me, that's the easiest way to do it. And if anything were to ever happen to the channel, that would probably be the only way to ever hear about it. I also really appreciate when people subscribe to my Patreon or become a channel member. That way you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.